He had all the money in the world, and 2 sons who could not move or speak. Doctors gave him limits. Life gave him betrayal. But one night, in the dark nursery, he saw the maid doing something no one else dared to try. What happened next rewrote success, fatherhood, and the true meaning of wealth. Stay till the end, because the moment his child finally speaks will change how you see life forever. Before we dive into this incredible story, do not forget to subscribe and hit the bell icon so you never miss our powerful, life-changing content. I built my first empire from cracked pavement and sleepless nights. Steel dust burned my lungs. Numbers burned my eyes. By 35, I owned cities on paper and silence in my chest. Success did not prepare me for the delivery room. The smell of antiseptic. The white light. The pause before the doctor spoke. My twins were born paralyzed. Their lungs worked. Their eyes searched. Their voices never came. Money failed me that day. I signed checks like apologies. Specialists came and went. Friends stopped calling. My wife left quietly, carrying grief I could not reach. I stayed. I learned the weight of diapers at midnight. The sound of machines breathing for tiny chests. The ache of holding children who could not hold back. Then came betrayal. My partner stole half my company. I watched screens bleed red. Billionaire to broken. Again. We hired a maid. A woman named Aisha. Soft steps. Worn hands. Eyes that listened. I ignored her until one night. The house was dark. Rain tapped the windows like questions. I heard a rhythm in the nursery. Not music. Not prayer. Breath. Aisha sat on the floor. My sons rested against her knees. She moved their fingers gently, pressed their feet into warm cloth, spoke to them slowly, clearly, with patience I had never learned. She taught them words with touch, meaning with repetition, hope with time. I felt shame burn my throat. All my power, and I had missed this. Weeks passed. My company returned stronger, rebuilt with ethics I once mocked. My sons watched me now. Their eyes followed. Their fingers squeezed back. One morning, in the thin gold light of dawn, I saw my child shape a sound with his mouth. A sound that did not exist yesterday. And Aisha looked at me as if she knew this moment was coming. And my heart understood that wealth was never the lesson. But I had not yet heard the word he was about to form. The sound trembled. Fragile. Unfinished. I held my breath like a sinner at a door. My son strained, eyes wet, jaw shaking with effort. Years of silence pressed into that moment. Aisha did not rush him. She never rushed anything. Her hand rested on his chest, feeling breath, counting patience. Again, he tried. A shape. A vibration. Not a word, but a beginning. I broke. Right there on the nursery floor. The billionaire who had faced courts and markets could not face hope without shaking. Doctors said progress would be minimal. They said paralysis draws a line. Aisha said lines can move. Every night she worked with them. Texture, temperature, rhythm, love disguised as routine. I learned to kneel, to listen, to lose control and gain meaning. My children learned pain slowly. Muscles screaming awake. Tears soaking blankets. But they never quit. Neither did I. I sold my arrogance before I sold shares. I rebuilt my company around dignity. Employees stayed. Truth returned. Money followed last. One afternoon, my former partner stood in my office. Apologies in his mouth. Fear in his eyes. I forgave him, not for him, but for my sons. At home, the house sounded different now. Soft grunts. Small laughs trapped in chests. Language learning to exist. Aisha prepared to leave. Another family. Another need. My son reached for her sleeve. His fingers closed. His mouth opened. Air pushed forward with intention. The sound was clearer this time. Heavy. Real. I leaned closer, heart hammering louder than my past. Because whatever he was about to say would change every definition I had ever believed in. And the room felt too small for the truth rising in his lungs. The word came out crooked. Soft. Brave. Not a name. Not yet. Just proof. I laughed and cried together, tasting salt and joy. Aisha closed her eyes as if thanking patience itself. Months folded into years. Therapy rooms smelled of rubber and effort. Windows steamed with breath and belief. My sons learned pain the way climbers learn ice, slowly, honestly, with trust in the rope. I learned to fail in public, to ask for help without bargaining, to carry my children through hallways while investors waited. One night, a board member mocked accommodations. I ended the meeting. I ended the contract. My company grew cleaner, lighter, trar. At home, the twins found cadence. Fingers tapped answers. Eyes spoke sentences. Silence became a language we respected, not feared. Aisha stayed. Not as a maid. As family. As compass. She taught me that strength is quiet when it matters. That love is work done daily without applause. The boys stood one afternoon, shaking, furious at gravity. I stood behind them, ready to catch regret. They fell. They rose. They fell again. Laughter burst out, a rough sound, wild and earned. I heard my name formed from effort and air, clear enough to cut through every old doubt. The world noticed then. Articles. Stages. Awards that felt smaller than a single step across the room. At night, I sit between their beds. Machines hum like patient insects. Moonlight paints silver parts on the floor. My sons watch me, waiting for the next lesson. And I realize the next truth is still forming inside me. Because tomorrow will demand a choice that tests everything we have built. And I have not yet told them what the doctors said this morning. The doctors spoke gently, which scared me more than blunt truth. Charts glowed. Lines dipped. Time pressed closer. A new surgery existed. Risk wrapped in hope. Progress balanced on a thin edge. I walked home under a sky too blue for fear. Traffic hummed like normal life mocking me. My hands shook around the steering wheel. At dinner, my sons studied my face. They read silence better than words. Aisha touched my arm once. Steady. Permission to be human. I remembered hunger. Cold floors. Signing my first loan with a pen that barely worked. I remembered betrayal and how it sharpened me. This choice softened me instead. The surgery could give them more movement, more speech, or take what little comfort they had earned. I went to my office at midnight. City lights blinked like distant stars. I rewrote contracts, redirected funds, created a foundation without my name. Wealth felt lighter when it was no longer armor. At home, my sons slept. One breathed unevenly. One smiled in dreams. Aisha sat between them, sewing torn fabric, repairing quietly as always. I knelt beside her, told her everything. She listened without interrupting. She said courage is not choosing safety. It is choosing love with open eyes. Morning came too fast. Consent forms waited. Small hands rested in mine, trusting without proof. My son lifted his chin. Focused. Determined. He shaped a clearer sound, stronger than before. I leaned closer, heart split between fear and faith. Because the word he was about to say would decide the path forward. And I did not yet know if I was ready for the strength he was about to show me. The word arrived slower than my fear. Pressed out by effort. Held together by will. Go. One syllable. Heavy as a promise. Doctors looked at charts. I looked at my son. He had already decided. The hospital smelled of steel and restraint. Lights hummed. Floors shined like doubt polished smooth. Aisha kissed their foreheads. Not for luck. For truth. I signed papers with a steadier hand than I expected. Every signature felt like surrender and faith braided together. Hours stretched thin. Machines spoke in beeps and pauses. I learned how loud silence can scream. I remembered boardrooms where seconds meant millions. Here, seconds meant breath. When the surgeon finally walked out, his eyes carried weight, not defeat. He said recovery would be long. Uncertain. Worth it. Weeks later, pain returned like an old enemy. Muscles relearned betrayal. Nerves argued with memory. Tears soaked pillows again. But something changed. A toe twitched. A finger lifted. A sound formed faster than before. I watched my sons fight gravity like it owed them something. I watched Aisha cheer victories no one else noticed. I watched myself become smaller and stronger at once. The world called me inspirational. They missed the point. My children inspired me. One evening, as rain traced the windows, my son looked straight at me. Focused. Certain. His chest rose. His lips shaped intention. This time the word was not effort. It was meaning. I leaned forward, heart unguarded, knowing whatever he said would change how I lead, how I love, how I live. And the sound gathering in his lungs carried a truth I had spent my life running from. The word landed clean. Unafraid. Stay. Not a request. A command wrapped in trust. I stayed. I cancelled flights. I missed summits. I watched seasons change through therapy room windows. Progress was uneven. One step forward. One night backward. Fever. Fear. A scare that stole my voice for hours. Aisha slept on a chair beside the beds. Neck stiff. Hands folded. Presence louder than prayer. I learned the math of devotion. 1 hour equals $1,000 lost. One smile equals a lifetime gained. My sons learned to sit longer, to lift higher, to shape clearer sounds. Their words came like bricks. Slow, deliberate, building something solid. The media called it a miracle. I called it repetition. My former wife visited once. Tears fell freely. Regret spoke softly. We stood together, not as before, but as parents who survived the same storm. The boys watched her leave. They understood leaving now. They also understood staying. Aisha received an offer from the foundation. Education. Leadership. A future earned, not given. She hesitated. She always did when praise arrived. One night, the house glowed with quiet confidence. My sons practiced sounds alone. Determined. Private. I stood in the doorway, unseen. I heard my name spoken clearly, fully, without struggle. Not shouted. Not practiced. Just said. My knees weakened. Years collapsed into that sound. Then my son added another word. New. Intentional. I stepped forward as he formed it. Because the meaning behind that word would demand a decision I could not delay. And I felt my old life loosening its grip as a truer purpose took shape between us. The word was simple. Terrifying in its honesty. Help. Not for himself. For his brother. I crossed the room in 2 strides. Pride fell away like a bad habit. I knelt, equal at last. They worked together. One guiding. One pushing. 2 minds learning cooperation before competition ever touched them. I saw my reflection in their effort. All those years alone. All that wasted strength. We adjusted the house. Lower counters. Wider doors. Freedom disguised as design, the company followed. Accessibility became policy, not charity. Profits rose quietly. Purpose roared. Pain did not disappear. It negotiated. Bad days returned uninvited. But despair stopped living here. Aisha began studying rehabilitation science. Late nights. Ink-stained fingers. The same patience she once gave my sons now aimed at the world. One evening, she asked me why I still looked afraid. I told her success leaves marks. Failure teaches. Love exposes. She smiled, gentle and unafraid. She said exposure is how light enters. The boys slept, exhausted from trying. Dreaming in effort. Dreaming in sound. I sat alone with financial reports and medical charts. One demanded expansion. One demanded rest. Both demanded me. Outside, the city pulsed. Inside, my heart argued with habit. Tomorrow, I must choose where the next chapter is written. In towers or therapy rooms. In speeches or silence. From the nursery came a soft rhythm. Breath. Movement. Togetherness. I stood, drawn by it. Knowing the choice waiting for me will redefine success for generations. And the answer is already forming in the voices I once feared I would never hear. I chose the room with uneven floors and stubborn hope. I stepped away from stages and into mornings that mattered. The company learned to run without my shadow. My sons learned to run with mine. Years passed measured in milestones no chart predicted. A full sentence. A steady step. A laugh that filled a hallway and stayed. Aisha graduated. She led with the same quiet fire. She never asked for credit. She earned impact. My twins spoke at a school opening built by our foundation. Their voices were not perfect. They were powerful. The crowd listened differently that day. I stood behind them, not above them. For the first time, wealth felt complete. I understood the lesson that success hides until you fail hard enough to see it. Money can build walls. Love builds doors. Power can impress. Patience transforms. Strength is not what you accumulate. It is what you choose to protect. My sons taught me that progress is not a leap. It is 1,000 brave attempts honored daily. Aisha taught me that dignity changes outcomes. I learned that staying is the rarest form of courage. When people ask how I became whole, I tell them I stopped chasing the future and started serving the present. Because the greatest return on any investment is a life lifted, a voice found, a hand held when leaving would have been easier. That is the fortune that never crashes. Thank you for listening to this heartfelt story. If it moved you, share it, comment below, and let someone know you are never alone.